Good morning, a frosty morning for most of us here. And I want to spend a little bit of time to talk about that initially here. And again, we are getting to on the calendar and on the climate calendar here as well, towards the end of when we typically see freezing temperatures. But we have a air mass out of Canada that's unusually cold and dry over us right now. And I guess the bad news is, of course, we've had a widespread hard freeze in many parts of the state and ongoing right now. But the other part of the news is it's moving and will be away from us here within the next 24 hours. And then we're looking at a very, very different type of weather pattern setting up here this weekend and for probably beyond that as well. But this morning here, just to give you an idea of and a couple things we can tell about this particular event here. We're looking at some of the raw meteorological observations here, and the number to note here are for each of these locations. If you had not familiar with this format, the red numbers are the air temperatures, and that's taken again about 5 feet above the surface, and so this gives us again an idea of where we are. This is a little bit old now, back to 6:25 last hour, but it's similar now. But what you can see across Michigan and much of the upper Midwest is sub-freezing temperatures. Almost all of Michigan, we do have temperatures at or below freezing. A couple things to note, though: some of the temps in the interior upper and in portions of the eastern lower really got down to below, well, what we would typically see this time of the year. Some cases even some upper teens, but many areas low to mid 20s and some mid 20s, as you can see here, as far south as the Saginaw Valley and the Thumb. One thing we can see also from this, as you go towards the south and west in the lower peninsula, the temperatures were not quite as cold. There's a example for a few upper 20s and near 30. Battle Creek at this particular observation was 33. There was a little bit of breeze in those areas that kept the temperatures up. The other issue here, the other number, the green numbers here below the red ones, below the air temperatures, those are dew point temperatures, which give us an idea of humidity. And what you can definitely see with this particular event is that the driest air, the lowest humidities, were in northern and eastern parts of the state. That's where we saw the coldest temperatures. So there was a direct correlation with the humidity. And to have again some of these sites over, you can see at Bad Axe, for example, an air temperature of 23 Fahrenheit and a dew point of 19 Fahrenheit. 19 dew point for a humid climate. Michigan is a humid climate. That's pretty unusual this time of the year, but a very, very dry and cold air mass for this time of the year. Fortunately, it's only going to be here about 24 to 36 hours. So that's where we are with the freeze. It'll be interesting to see how things shake out. The landscape played a role here with lower areas seeing colder temperatures and vice versa. But we will unfortunately have a little bit of a risk of frost tomorrow morning, but temperatures should be significantly warmer or milder than they are this morning. This is definitely the worst that we'll see with this particular event. Looking at the last week in review here, we saw some ups and downs. There was actually another frost event a few days ago, but overall, the average temperatures for the week turned out to be pretty close to a degree or two above the normal. When we take the long-term averages, there was fairly widespread precipitation across the state during the time. On the right-hand side here, most areas seeing at least a half to 1 inch, so at least normal values of precipitation for this time of the year. A little bit less, some areas less than half an inch in far northern and eastern portions of lower Michigan and portions of upper Michigan. But in general, again, precip was fairly widespread during the week. And that's a theme we're going to talk about here just in another minute or two. We are moving into a wetter than normal period here for the next probably couple weeks. Soil temperatures, I've got a graphic here that I have not shown before. It's because it's brand new. And we're looking here at 4-inch bare soil temperatures this is from the Midwestern Regional Climate Center, but it's with our EnviroWeather network here in Michigan, at least the values we have in Michigan. And our 4-inch bare soil temperatures range from the upper 40s. This would be the mean 4-inch soil temperature So we still have some upper 40s left in the Upper Peninsula, and then those increase to the around 50 to the low 50s, even to some mid 50s in the far southwestern part of the state. That's where we were on the 23rd. Our soil temperatures this past week, given those air temperature departures, they were pretty steady, or fall they fell a few degrees from where they were at this point last time. What I wanted to bring to your attention here, we talked about a really early start this year because of the unusually warm conditions in February and parts of March. Well, on the right-hand side here, this is a climatology of soil temperature. It's a new product from the Midwest Climate Center. The link to this is down. I've listed it down on the bottom. But it gives us an idea, at least over time. This is something we've never really had before very well, the climatology. What's the average date when the bare or 4-inch bare soil temperature warms above 50? And that's the average. And you can see in Michigan here, looking, well, it shows the upper Midwest, but for Michigan, you can see that date ranges from late April in the far south. The southeast corner of the state is where we climatologically see the warmest temperatures. Then it moves to the first part of May as we move into central lower Michigan, to the second week in May in the north, and then finally all the way into late May or early June as we go into upper Michigan. So, and again, this is the climatological average between 1991 and 2020. So it gives us some kind of historical or climatological context here. But what it all points to, and given the values that you see on the left-hand side, is that just like air temperature, our soil temperatures are warmer than normal than they typically are at this time of the year, probably by a week or two at a minimum. So that we have that going for us, at least in terms of thinking about field work. The challenge now is going to be more water related, and that's a lot of what we're going to spend our time with here over the next couple minutes. On our weather map this morning, again, the Canadian origin air mass that I talked about causing the freeze, it's over eastern Ontario and Quebec. That's the big blue H's here. And that's moving off to the east away from us, but it'll be with us for one more day. We should have mostly sunny skies today, really pretty nice day, but it will be warmer than it was yesterday. Probably most areas into the 50s, maybe even a couple places nearing 60, but should be mostly full sun today. Our freezing temperatures with sun coming up right now as we speak should be probably a backup above freezing here, with certainly within the next hour or so. So not much more of the sub-freezing temperatures, and then up to our high temperatures. We should see fair skies overnight and for most of the day tomorrow. However, we do have the first of two major weather systems to impact us that will be organizing tomorrow out over the Central Plains. You can see that here, this area of low pressure with a large area of precip and a warm front. This system has a lot going for it in terms of upper air dynamics. The jet stream will be strengthening it. It also has access to lots of Gulf of Mexico moisture. So this is a fairly large system, and yet another one. We've had several of these come and impact us here over the last few weeks. But there will be, with that high pressure off to our east, there will be one more morning where we see relatively clear, calm conditions here overnight. We likely will see some scattered frost. These are forecast minimum temperatures tomorrow morning. And again, you can see that they're quite a bit, several degrees warmer than they are right now or have been overnight, but still, especially over northeastern portions of the state, we will see temperatures back down or maybe a degree or two below freezing. But again, not as severe and not as widespread as what we have right now. So one more cold morning, and then things really change as we move into the weekend. Here's the map for weather map forecast for Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, and you can see that the system has moved from Kansas up to central Minnesota. There's a trailing warm front here. And so what we're going to see with this, with a big surge of moisture coming and actually warm air on the way, that's the other major story. We will see increasing clouds tomorrow, especially during the afternoon, with the development of rain, showers, and thunderstorms by as early as late afternoon, but I think most of it will hold off to the evening, and then that will spread from the southwest to northeast across the state overnight. Most of us will see at least a quarter to half an inch with this particular system, and most of the precipitation should be over by the middle or part of the day on Saturday or early afternoon. But there will be a continuing lingering chance, and it sets a stage also for a second weather system, which you can see out here over the Rockies. That's system number two. That approaches us on Sunday. And so after this particular weather system goes through, we have a second one coming. That will be here probably by the afternoon on Sunday, and then continue on into Monday, even Monday evening, with another widespread 1/4 to half inch or greater. There will be some 1 inch totals probably in that as well. And given the way I mentioned an active jet stream here, there's an active dynamics here, that with the weather system on Saturday, the way that this is set up, there will be a chance that we see some strong thunderstorms between on late Saturday and Sunday. And the Storm Prediction Center here has identified portions of at least lower western and northern lower Michigan as having a slight risk of severe weather. We could see a number of high winds and possibly some hail, maybe even a tornado or two. So something to keep an eye on. It's still a couple days out, but there still is the potential there. And the other big factor here, our temperatures are going to go from way below normal, where they are right now, to much above normal. And we will see, especially across southern and central parts of the state here this weekend, highs well into the 70s. We will probably push 80 for a high on Sunday. So huge, huge turnaround in terms of temperature, and going from late winter, early spring, essentially to summer. Our minimum temperatures in southern parts of the state by late in the weekend will not drop out of the 60s. So we are going to see not just a major turnaround and lots of degree days, and with water, lots of things are going to happen in terms of development. Unfortunately, it's also going to be a difficult one for field work. Obviously, people want to get going and moving here, but it's going to take a little time depending on again on how much precipitation falls. And speaking about that, the totals, here are the forecast totals for the upcoming week through next Thursday. And you can see that for much of the state, unfortunately, we're looking at least an inch, some cases more than that, maybe even approaching 2 inches in some northern parts of the state. You can also see here the gradient. The totals are expected to be heaviest across northern parts of the state and western parts of the state, and the least in the southeast. I think that's probably a fairly good bet. So in the southeast, you might want to be just ready to go. We're ready to pull the trigger if you do get a break and you're missed by a thunderstorm, because again, that's probably where our totals will be lowest here, but there will be a continuing threat for precip much of this weekend into early next week as well. One other thing to note about this too, this time of the year, it's important to note that with very warm temperatures, and we're going to see high temperatures in the 60s, 70s, and again up to near 80, our evaporation rates will be significantly higher over the next week than they typically are at this time of the year. So that should help. So even if we get rain, there's going to be, right now we're looking at least 1500ths of at least potential evapotranspiration. In some cases, maybe even pushing 2/10 of an inch with those kind of temperatures. So some of it will be recycled back into the atmosphere relatively quickly. So be ready to go. If there's an opportunity there, you should use that to your advantage. In the medium range forecast guidance here, what you've just seen here, this big pattern change that we're looking at with troughing, upper air troughing out over the western part of the U.S. That's what you have here on the left-hand side here, and then ridging over the Midwest and the East. That's a lot of what the medium range guidance has been consistently calling for. And so both the 6 to 10 and 8 to 14 day outlooks look like this, and very, very strongly call for warmer than normal mean temperatures, and then a range of precipitation totals from maybe even a little bit below normal in the southeastern parts of the state, and then to our south and east, to above normal as you move north and west through the state. Again, 8 to 14 day, very, very similar to this, but I think the most important message is the above normal temperatures. That very, very consistent. And not only for this period, it goes on beyond the first week, maybe two of May, beyond or longer than that. We have some new long lead outlooks to look at, and they're consistent with some of what you just saw. Most of you know we've had an El Nino event in place in the equatorial Pacific here with us since last fall. That's rapidly weakening and decreasing. We'll be back to near neutral conditions, so neither El Nino or La Nina here by probably by certainly the beginning of the summer and beyond that. But if you look at the forecast values here, or the uh, forecast indices for the El Nino Southern Oscillation, what we also see is, yes, the equatorial Pacific is cooling down right now as we speak, as it goes back to near neutral, but it continues to go past neutral. And by late summer or fall, we have a return of La Nina, the cool event. That's the blue bars here on the right, and the Climate Prediction Center is suggesting as much as an 80% likelihood of this happening. That's not going to influence our weather now or anytime soon. It won't come until probably later in the year, but we'll talk more about that. But as a result of these, essentially collectively, both the new outlook for the month of May, those are the top two panels here, and then both, well, also the seasonal May through July 3-month outlook, and even beyond that into the late growing season, they're all calling for warmer than normal mean temperatures here, looking at the future with no direction on precip. And that's pretty consistent here for much of the upcoming growing season, but certainly for the next few weeks and then for the early part of the summer. All these things are consistent with one another. So warmer than normal is I think is the operative, or the take-home message here with our long lead and medium range too. So summarizing here, very active weather pattern across the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes, with major changes after a significant hard freeze here. And it could be calendar-wise, this might be it for the season. Let's hope so, but we're getting towards that date anyway. But a rapid and very, very noticeable warm-up coming with summer conditions here likely by this weekend, and also many chances for precipitation with above wetter than normal week over much of the state, maybe except for the southeast corner, for the short term. And looking again at field work, et cetera, it's going to be a little bit dicey, a little bit difficult with the continuing threat of rain. And I'll stop there and move to introduce our speaker for next week. And most of you know Manny Singh from our plant soils department here at MSU. He's going to be with us to talk about staging crop growth stages. And he's already been with us once this year, but we'll have him back for a return to talk about cropping management decisions coming up. So that's 1 week from today. Don't miss that. That's the 2nd of May.